When this 65-year-old veteran discovered his daughter and son-in-law had been secretly draining his pension account for years, stealing thousands of dollars, he quietly devised a brilliant plan that would expose their shocking betrayal. What happened when they tried to access his money the next morning left them completely speechless. The ATM screen showed zero balance. Benjamin tried the card again, then again. Nothing. His face went from confusion to panic to pure rage in about 10 seconds. That's when I knew my plan had worked perfectly. "Where is the money, Henry?" he screamed at me the second I walked through my front door that Thursday afternoon. The card was empty. There wasn't a single damn dollar. My daughter Sophia was pacing in my living room like a caged animal, her face twisted with fury I'd never seen before. "Have you lost your mind, Dad?" she yelled. "Benjamin nearly had a heart attack at the ATM this morning." I set down my bag of garden supplies, just some basic stuff to fix Charlotte's flower beds, and looked at both of them. For the first time in 2.5 years, I wasn't scared of their anger. "I changed my banking information," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "My pension now goes to a new card, one that only I control." Then I walked over to my coffee table and laid down 47 pages of bank statements, showing every penny they'd stolen from me. Both of them went dead silent and turned white as ghosts. Let me back up and tell you how I got to that moment. My name is Henry Matthews. I'm 65 years old, and this is the story of how I finally stood up to the people who were bleeding me dry. Here's the thing about getting older. People start looking at you different. Like you're not quite all there anymore. Like you can't handle your own business. That's what happened to me after my wife Charlotte passed away. Charlotte and I were married for 38 years. Met her right after I got out of the Army back in 1981. I'd done 6 years as a construction engineer, mostly stateside, but some overseas work too. When I got home, I used those skills to become a construction foreman. Worked the same job for 35 years, built half the houses in our neighborhood with my own hands. Charlotte was an elementary school teacher, one of those women who could handle 30 kids and still have energy left over to help me fix the plumbing when I got home. We had a good life in Milwaukee. Decent house, steady income. And when I retired, I was pulling in $2,600 a month between Social Security and VA disability. My back ain't what it used to be after all those years swinging a hammer. The heart attack took her fast. One minute she's sitting in the backyard playing that old guitar I bought her for our anniversary. Next minute she's gone. Just like that. 38 years together, and I didn't even get to say goodbye. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was a mess. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, just wandered around that empty house missing her. Something terrible. The guys from my old VFW post would call, but I didn't want to talk to anybody. Just wanted to sit in my chair and feel sorry for myself. That's when Sophia started coming around more. At first, I thought she was being a good daughter. She'd bring groceries, clean up a bit, ask how I was doing, made me feel like maybe I wasn't completely alone in the world. But here's what I didn't realize. Grief makes you stupid. When you're hurting that bad, you'll believe almost anything someone tells you, especially if it's your own kid doing the talking. One day she shows up with her husband, Benjamin, and 2 suitcases. "Dad," she says, sitting down next to me with this real concerned look. "You shouldn't be alone in this big house. What if something happens? What if you fall and nobody's here to help?" Benjamin's nodding along, talking about how it's too much upkeep for someone my age. Too many stairs, too much yard work, too much responsibility. They were real smooth about it, I'll give them that. "What if we moved in temporarily?" Sophia says, squeezing my hand. "Just until you're feeling stronger. We'd help with everything. Cooking, cleaning, bills. You wouldn't have to worry about anything." I should have asked questions, like why they needed to move in the first place. What happened to their apartment? Why now, all of a sudden? But like I said, Grief makes you stupid. All I heard was that I wouldn't have to be alone anymore. Okay, I said. That would be good. The first month wasn't too bad. Sophia cooked meals, not as good as Charlotte's, but edible. Benjamin helped with some yard work, fixed a leaky faucet. I felt useful helping with dishes and laundry, small stuff that made me think I was contributing. But then things started changing, little by little. Sophia moved into the master bedroom. "You don't need all that space, Dad," and moved me into the small back room where Charlotte used to sew. It was barely bigger than a closet, but I told myself it was temporary. Then came the money requests. First, it was $300 for Benjamin's job training course. "Just until Friday, Dad. I'll pay you back soon as I get the certificate." Friday came and went. No payback, no mention of the money. Next month, it was $500 for a credit card payment. Sophia had tears in her eyes, talking about how they were in a bind, how embarrassed she was to ask. I gave her the money. Never saw that either. By month 3, the requests got bigger and more frequent. And Sophia had a new idea that sounded real reasonable at the time. "Dad, it would be so much easier if your pension just went into my account," she said one evening. "That way I can handle all the household expenses directly, pay the bills, buy groceries, manage everything. You wouldn't have to worry about keeping track of all those numbers." She had papers ready for me to sign. Bank authorization forms, direct deposit changes, legal stuff I didn't understand. "Just sign here, Dad. It'll make everything so much simpler." That's when I made the biggest mistake of my life. I signed those papers without reading them, handed over control of every penny I had to my own daughter. And that's when I stopped being Henry Matthews, Army veteran and construction foreman, and became their unpaid servant. Once they had control of my money, everything changed real quick. And I mean everything. I went from being the man of the house to being the hired help. Up every morning at 5 a.m., old Army habits die hard. But now instead of getting ready for my own day, I was making breakfast for them. Eggs exactly how Benjamin liked them. Coffee strong enough to strip paint. If the toast was too dark or the eggs weren't runny enough, I'd hear about it. "Come on, Henry," Benjamin would say, not even looking up from his phone. "How hard is it to make eggs? My grandmother could do better and she's been dead for 10 years. After breakfast came the dishes, then their laundry, then cleaning their bathroom. Yeah, their bathroom. In my own damn house. The master bedroom came with the master bath, and suddenly I'm scrubbing the toilet for a guy who couldn't hold down a job if his life depended on it. By noon, I'd have their lunch ready. By 4 p.m., I was starting dinner prep. Somewhere in between, I'd vacuum, dust, iron Benjamin's shirts, and let me tell you, that man was picky about his shirts. Had to be pressed just so, creases sharp as a knife. If they weren't perfect, back to the ironing board I'd go. You know what really got to me? The way they talked about me like I wasn't even there. I'd be in the kitchen washing dishes, and I'd hear them in the living room. "Think he's getting worse?" Sophia would say. "Definitely," Benjamin would answer. "Look how confused he gets about simple stuff. Good thing we're here to take care of things." Confused? I built houses for 35 years, managed crews of 20 guys, handled million-dollar construction projects, but, apparently, I was too confused to manage my own checkbook. The isolation was the worst part. My old buddy Alexander from the VFW would call, and Sophia would answer. "Dad's not feeling well today," she'd say. "Maybe another time." Alexander called probably 30 times over those 2 years. I never got to talk to him once. Same thing with the guys from my old construction crew. "Dad's resting," she'd tell them. "The doctor says too much excitement isn't good for him." What doctor? The only doctor I'd seen was for my regular VA checkup, and he said I was doing fine for a guy my age. I started feeling like a prisoner in my own house. Couldn't go anywhere without permission. Couldn't talk to my friends. Couldn't make my own decisions about anything. When you're isolated like that, you start believing what they tell you. Maybe I was getting confused. Maybe I did need them to take care of everything. That's how they got me. piece by piece, they took away who I was. But here's the thing about being in the army. They teach you to pay attention to details. And I started noticing things, like the shopping bags Sophia would come home with, designer clothes, expensive purses, jewelry that caught the light just right. "Oh, this old thing?" she'd say when I'd ask about a new dress. "Got it on sale." Or Benjamin's new habits, sitting on his laptop all hours of the day and night, getting real excited or real angry depending on what was on the screen. When I asked what he was doing, he'd snap it shut. "Just job hunting, old man. You wouldn't understand." Then I started finding receipts. They'd fall out of pockets when I was doing laundry or get left on the kitchen counter. A $1,800 necklace from some jewelry store downtown. A 75-inch TV for $2,400. Plane tickets to Miami for a long weekend. $2,800 total. All of it bought with my pension money while I was wearing the same 3 shirts and sleeping in a room the size of a closet. But you want to know what really broke my heart? What made me realize just how little I meant to them? My tools. I had a complete craftsman tool set that I'd been building for 35 years. Every wrench, every drill bit, every saw, I'd earned them through honest work. Some of those tools helped me build the very house we were living in. They were part of who I was, you know? A man's tools tell his story. One Saturday morning, I went out to the garage to fix a loose step on the back porch. The whole wall where my toolbox used to be was empty. Not a single tool left. I found Sophia in the kitchen, making herself some fancy coffee with a machine I'd never seen before. "Where are my tools?" I asked. She didn't even look up. "I sold them." Just like that. No explanation, no apology. "I sold them." "Those were my tools, Sophia. I've had some of them since before you were born." She finally looked at me, and her expression was cold as winter. "Dad, you don't use them anymore. What's the point of letting them just sit there gathering? Dust? Besides, we needed the money for bills." Bills. Right. Like that necklace around her neck was a bill, like Benjamin's new watch was a bill. "How much did you get for them?" I asked. $3,200, she said, going back to her coffee like we were talking about the weather. $3,200. 35 years of collecting professional-grade tools, and she sold the whole lot for $3,200. Probably got ripped off by some pawn shop that knew a desperate seller when they saw one. Benjamin walked into the kitchen just then, heard the tail end of our conversation. "What's an old man need tools for anyway?" he said with this smirk. "Not like you're building anything anymore." That's when something inside me started to change. Not right away. It took a few more weeks. But that was the moment I started to wake up from the fog they'd put me in. These people weren't taking care of me. They were erasing me. Every tool in that garage had a story. The level I used to make sure Charlotte's kitchen cabinets were perfect. The saw that helped me build Sophia's treehouse when she was 8. The drill that must have put 1,000 screws into 1,000 projects over the years. They took my history and sold it for pocket change. That night, I lay in that narrow bed in Charlotte's old sewing room, staring at the ceiling and thinking about everything I'd lost. My tools, my friends, my independence, my dignity. My own daughter had turned me into a stranger in my own home. But I wasn't dead yet. And I sure as hell wasn't going down without a fight. The wake-up call came 3 weeks later, and it hit me like a freight train. I was looking for some paperwork. Something about Charlotte's old life insurance policy that I needed for my taxes. Sophia said she'd handle it, but I wanted to see the documents myself. Call it old army training. Always verify your intel. I checked the obvious places first. Kitchen drawers, the old desk in the living room, even my cramped little room. Nothing. Then I remembered Sophia had moved a bunch of paperwork into her dresser when they took over the master bedroom. I knocked on the door, No answer. They were both out somewhere, probably spending more of my money. I pushed the door open and went to the dresser. That's when I found the folder. It was tucked under some sweaters, labeled Sunset Meadows Nursing Home, in Sophia's handwriting. My hand started shaking as I pulled it out. The first thing I saw was a glossy brochure. Happy old folks sitting around playing cards, eating meals in a big dining room, getting pushed around in wheelchairs by smiling nurses. The kind of place that looks real nice in the pictures but smells like disinfectant and despair once you're stuck there. The price sheet was paper-clipped to the back, starting at $3,400 per month. My pension was $2,600. Do the math. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what came next. A medical evaluation report, dated 3 weeks earlier, signed by some Dr. Michael Wilson I'd never heard of in my life. According to this guy, I was disoriented and confused, had significant memory issues, and was unable to manage basic daily tasks. Then it hit me. 3 weeks ago, Sophia had driven me to some clinic on the east side. Said it was just a routine checkup for my VA benefits, something about updating my records. I'd been fighting a cold that week, had taken some heavy-duty cold medicine that morning, felt groggy as hell. The appointment was maybe 15 minutes. This young doctor asked me a few questions. What year it was, who the president was, where I lived. I answered them all, but my head was foggy from the medicine. He nodded, scribbled some notes, and sent me on my way. Now I understood. They'd drugged me up and taken me to some quack who'd write whatever they wanted for the right price. Made me look like I was losing my marbles so they could have me declared incompetent. The next document made my blood run cold. A petition for guardianship and conservatorship, all filled out and ready to file. Sophia requesting to be appointed my legal guardian because I was unable to manage my own affairs due to cognitive decline. At the bottom, a filing date, November 15th, 2 weeks away. I kept reading. Once the guardianship went through, they'd have complete control over everything. My house, my pension, my VA benefits, my medical decisions. They could put me anywhere they wanted, sell my house, spend my money however they saw fit. And here's the kicker. There was an email printed out from Sophia to this Dr. Wilson. Thank you for agreeing to help with my father's evaluation. As we discussed, he's been declining rapidly since my mother passed. I appreciate your assistance in documenting his condition. They'd planned the whole thing, got me medicated, took me to a crooked doctor, and had him write a fake evaluation. In 2 weeks, they'd file the papers and I'd disappear into Sunset Meadows while they lived in my house and spent my money. I sat on the edge of their bed. My bed, the bed Charlotte and I had shared for 35 years, and felt something I hadn't felt since my army days. Cold, focused anger. You know what they teach you in the military? Intelligence gathering comes first. Know your enemy, know their plans, know their weaknesses. Well, now I knew their plan. Time to make one of my own. I put everything back exactly where I found it, closed the drawer, and walked out of that room. But I wasn't the same man who'd walked in. The fog was gone. The confusion was gone. For the first time in 2.5 years, my head was crystal clear. That night, I barely slept. I lay in that narrow bed making plans like I was preparing for a mission. Step 1, secure my finances. Step 2, gather evidence. Step 3, get help. Step 4, execute. The next morning, I told Sophia I needed to go to the bank. Something about updating my VA direct deposit information. She offered to drive me, to help, with the paperwork. But I insisted on going alone. I can handle it, I said. Just some routine military stuff you wouldn't understand anyway. The bus ride to First National Bank took 30 minutes. I sat in the back, going over my plan one more time. My hands were steady for the first time in months. Amelia Johnson, The branch manager was a professional woman in her 40s who listened without judgment when I explained what I needed. "I want to see every transaction on my account for the past 2.5 years, I told her. "All of it." "That's going to be quite a few pages, Mr. Matthews," she warned. "I don't care if it's 100 pages. I want to see where every penny went." The printer ran for 10 minutes straight. When it finally stopped, she handed me a stack 47 pages thick. My entire financial life for the past 2.5 years, laid out in black and white. I went through every page, every transaction, every withdrawal. Restaurants I'd never been to, stores I'd never shopped at. Online purchases for things I'd never seen. Jewelry stores, electronics stores, airline tickets, hotel bills. $47,000 gone. 2.5 years of my pension and VA benefits, blown on stuff I didn't even know existed. "Mrs. Johnson," I said when I finished, "I need to open a new account, one that nobody else has access to, and I need to transfer my direct deposits, all of them." She nodded like she'd seen this before. "I can help you with that, Mr. Matthews. It'll take about 5 business days for your new debit card to arrive." 5 days, I repeated. "And then my money goes into my account, not theirs?" "That's correct. Your Social Security and VA benefits will deposit directly into your new account, starting with your next payment." I signed the papers with a steady hand. For the first time in 2.5 years, I was making a decision about my own money. Walking out of that bank, I felt like I'd been holding my breath underwater and could finally come up for air. The plan was in motion. In 5 days, when Benjamin went to that ATM expecting to find $2,600, he'd find nothing. And then we'd see who was confused and disoriented. Those 5 days felt like 5 years. Every morning I'd wake up wondering if today was the day they'd figure it out. But I kept up the routine, making their breakfast, doing their laundry, playing the confused old man they thought I was. Tuesday, October 29th, the plain white envelope arrived. My new debit card, embossed with Henry Matthews in raised letters. I activated it right away, set my PIN to Charlotte's birthday, 0428. For the first time in 2.5 years, I had a piece of plastic in my wallet that was actually mine. Thursday morning came gray and drizzly, typical Milwaukee October weather. I woke up at 5 a.m. like always, but this time I knew something was different. My pension had deposited overnight, $2,600 into my new account, where it belonged. I made coffee, read yesterday's paper, and around 10 a.m. I told them I was going to the hardware store. Needed some supplies to winterize Charlotte's flower beds before the real cold hit. "You don't need to do that, Dad," Sophia said, barely looking up from her phone. "We can hire someone." "I can handle it," I said. "Been doing yard work longer than you've been alive." Benjamin was still in bed. Guy rarely got up before noon. I figured he'd hit the ATM around lunchtime like he usually did. That's when the fireworks would start. I took my time at the hardware store, bought some mulch and basic gardening tools, had to replace at least some of what they'd stolen from me. When I got back around noon, I could see them through the living room window. Sophia was pacing back and forth like she was ready to jump out of her skin. Benjamin was on his phone, probably calling the bank. I opened the front door, and the explosion hit me before I could even set down my bags. "Where is the money, Henry?" Benjamin screamed, his face purple with rage. "The card was empty. There wasn't a single damn dollar." Sophia whirled around, her eyes blazing. "Have you lost your mind, Dad? Benjamin nearly had a heart attack at the ATM." I set my hardware store bag down nice and slow, then looked them both in the eye. "I changed my banking information," I said, calm as you please. "My pension goes to me now, where it belongs." The silence that followed was beautiful. You could hear the old radiator clicking, a car passing outside, normal life continuing while their world collapsed. "What did you say?" Sophia whispered. Instead of answering, I walked to the coffee table and laid down those 47 pages from the bank. Every transaction, every theft, every lie they'd been living. 47 pages, I said. Every penny you stole from me. $47,000 over 2.5 years. Benjamin grabbed the papers, his hands shaking as he flipped through them. These are private. They're mine, I said. My account, my money, my right to see where it went. That's when I started reading from the top page. October 15th, Miami Beach Resort, $1,800. September 22nd, crypto trading platform, $2,400. August 30th, designer handbags online, $950. With each item I read, their faces got whiter. You want to talk about confusion? I continued. I was confused how my tools disappeared. I was confused how you could afford Miami vacations on unemployment benefits. I was confused how a man who hasn't worked in 3 years could buy a $400 watch. Sophia started crying. Those same manipulation tears she'd been using on me for years. Dad, please, we have debts. If you cut us off, we'll lose everything. You mean like I lost everything? I asked. My tools, my independence, my dignity, my friends? The friends you kept away from me for 2 years? That's when Benjamin made his biggest mistake. He stepped toward me with his fist raised. You ungrateful old bastard, we took care of you. Benjamin, said a voice from the doorway. I wouldn't do that if I were you. We all turned. Standing in the entrance was my granddaughter, Olivia, but she wasn't alone. Behind her was Alexander Foster, my old army buddy from the VFW, and he was holding a folder that looked awfully familiar. Olivia, Sophia gasped. What are you doing here? Grandpa called me, Olivia said, stepping into the room. She was 26, worked in insurance up in Chicago. But right then she looked like a general taking command of the battlefield. He told me everything. About the money, about the fake medical evaluation, about your plan to put him in a nursing home. Alexander stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Benjamin. Son, I'd back away from my friend if I know what's good for you. Turns out, after I'd changed my banking, I'd called Alexander, told him the whole story. He'd driven over with Olivia and brought some paperwork of his own, contact information for elder abuse attorneys, veterans legal aid, and the phone number for adult protective services. You pike, know what this is? Alexander asked, holding up their nursing home folder. This is attempted guardianship fraud. In Wisconsin, that's a felony. And this fake medical evaluation? That's fraud, too. Federal charges if it involves VA benefits. Benjamin's tough guy act crumbled fast. Now wait a minute. No, you wait, Olivia interrupted. I've documented everything, the bank statements, the medical fraud, all of it. You have exactly one choice. Leave now and don't come back, or I file charges tomorrow morning. We have nowhere to go, Sophia sobbed. Should have thought of that before you robbed your father blind, Alexander said. It took them 3 hours to pack up and leave. 3 hours of angry whispers, slammed drawers, and dirty looks. But by 6 p.m., they were gone. That night, I slept in my own bed, the master bedroom Charlotte and I had shared. Alexander stayed over. We ordered pizza and watched the Packers game like old times. For the first time in 2.5 years, I felt like myself again. 6 months later, I'm a different man. Got my life back, got my house back, got my friends back. I'm teaching basic construction skills at the Veterans Center twice a week. Olivia visits every other weekend. Alexander and I have coffee every Tuesday at the VFW. Sophia called once, about 2 months ago. She'd left Benjamin, was working 2 jobs, wanted to apologize for real this time. I listened. Told her I believed she was sorry. But I also told her that trust has to be earned back, one day at a time. Maybe someday we'll have a relationship again. Maybe not. But I know one thing for sure. I'll never again mistake love for letting someone destroy me. I'm 65 years old. I served my country for 6 years and worked honest jobs for 41 more. I earned every penny of that pension, and I earned the right to control my own life. And anybody who thinks different can go pound sand. Family isn't about blood. It's about who stands by you when the chips are down, not who shows up when you have something to take. Your worth isn't measured by what you can give others. It's measured by how you stand up for yourself when everything seems lost.